Hello, everybody. This is Bridging Realms with Melody Pash. And Darla and Jill, my team members, are going to be joining me. We have a very cool, howdy, girls. We have a very cool dream today called Unlikely Partners. I'm going to read through it and then we're going to go back and take some pieces and process it like we always do. All righty. So this dreamer says, I dreamed that I was heading out across a dirt field. I was very determined with a peaceful sense of power and authority. She was feeling very confident. As I set out, lots of hornets came buzzing from behind, going out before me. Then snakes were slithering on the ground before me and blackbirds over me like crows or ravens. They were poised and ready to fly and join as well. It felt like we were going out to war, but with no fear, just a curious company of fellow fighters. Wow, that's a cool one.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. So let's talk about, guys, the emotions that we have in dreams at times. Sometimes if you're afraid of spiders, you don't want to talk about spiders. You don't want spiders in your dream. We've talked about that. I think we talked about that last week or so. Anyway, there are elements in this dream that people don't care for. Snakes, crows, whatever, hornets. So we have to be very, very careful when we are going over and processing the dream that as it's your own dream, you are not processing through your emotions. Just remember mind, soul, mind, heart, and emotions, that's your soul, right? So your soul has responses or reactions to particular elements in the dream that in real life you hate or you can't really contend with, you don't care for, you're afraid of, right? So those emotions you've got to compartmentalize and put to the side so that you can see the metaphoric language of the dream and see what God is speaking through these elements that you in real life, your awake life, you don't care for or gross you out or frighten you. So I want to make sure that you're not basing your interpretations and your processing, your dream processing on your emotions, because that is going to make your interpretation somewhat distorted and probably inaccurate. Okay, so let's read back through one more time. I dreamed that I was heading out across a dirt field. All right, so we have a dirt field. It's not a field full of pretty wildflowers. It's a dirt field. The dreamer says they were very determined with a peaceful sense of power and authority. So they are in a place of well-being in the dream. The emotions that are in the scenario of the dream are what you're going to go by rather than your typical emotions, which in your awake state would be responding to the elements in the dream. I hope that makes sense. So the dreamer is basically saying, my emotions in the dream were peaceful and I had a sense of power and authority. So those are the emotions that we're going to put our stock in as we are interpreting this dream. I set out as they set out, lots of hornets came buzzing from behind and then going out before. Then snakes are slithering on the ground before the dreamer, and some blackbirds and like crows or ravens were poised and ready to fly, join in this company as well. And it felt like they were going to war. That's another emotion. The dreamer is giving you a clue of why they are there in the dirt field. They're going to war, but with no fear. So that's an emotion she doesn't have. Just a curious, she's saying that she's curious about this company of fellow fighters. All right, Jill, you've got some notes on this, and Darlin, I'll jump in. You want to start? Well, first, let me talk about, I don't think you had any notes on the dirt field. What do you girls think about the dirt field? The field with nothing growing in it.
I think that would be like the preparation, the groundwork, of something going forward. So there's no growth yet, but it's been plowed probably. And, that's a process that you go through in prayer and intercession, especially for like the nation. If you're going to war for the nation, which the soul of our nation is what we're concerned about. So I would think that it would be the preparation.
Well, and it's foundational, right? It's foundational.
Right.
If you're going to build something, you're going to build it upon the dirt. The dirt is also, now in dreams, a lot of times dirt is also going to relate to things like generational line. Land, God's all about land. He's all about the land, right? So a field is also what you occupy, what's in your field of work or your field of trade, right?
Right.
That's going to be a clue. All right, you want to talk about a couple of the things, and then we'll stop and talk some more. Let's talk about the hornets. What you got there, Jill?
Yeah, well, the hornets, they are usually stinging, venomous words, but in this case, there's a positive aspect. And anyway, the Lord uses anything and everything, and he used the hornets to clear out the land for the Israelites during the time when Moses and them were moving into their promised land. And so he emptied out the land by using the hornets against the enemy. And so anyway, that's one aspect that he used that you wouldn't normally think, which most people don't stick around when there's a hornet. You vacate the area or you kill them, one or the other.
Yeah, that's really good though. And so the hornets are on the dreamer's side, which is really good. You were talking about the redemption of that. So God's going to use the hornets, but he's going to use the hornets on the side of, see how God will use anything he wants to for his purposes, right? Think of Balaam's ass. Balaam was the ass was speaking, the donkey was speaking to Balaam because Balaam wasn't listening. He was being rebellious. God will use whatever he decides to and whatever he needs to. And more importantly than that, whatever the enemy sends, God will use. He will turn it around and he will use it for his purposes. And that's the beauty of God. You don't have to worry about what the enemy sends because God's going to use it against the enemy. He's just going to turn it around and use that shovel against him. I love that. So the hornets were very significant in the time, as you were talking about with the children of Israel and all of that, and the hornets, that stinging, just think of that. Just in the corporate, you were talking about the corporate overall and stuff with the nation earlier, that those slanderous words, there's been an awful lot of that flying around, slander. And it seems like slander is a very common practice anymore, doesn't seem to be an issue. and they are very vengeful. You are absolutely right about that. They're also very vengeful. If it's hot outside or they're agitated about something or you get in their territory, they are coming after you. They are coming after you. So I love that they're on the side of the dreamer. It's about time we had some good, kick ass kind of situations where we're getting to work with the things that the enemy actually sends to be our destruction. It's about time. And this is the fun part of the battle, in my opinion. This is where it gets to be fun. So then the snakes, they start joining in. Jill, you got some stuff there for us? Darla, did you want to say anything about the hornets? Sorry.
Actually, I whenever you hear of a bee or a hornet or whatever, they make a specific sound that makes you stop. Are they getting closer? Are they just going by? Do I need to run? Do I need to hold still? In their defense, there's a warning before they come, unless like Joe was saying that it's the words depending on what they represent in the dream. But in this case, they're part of the army, and they're the first ones going out. So it's almost like an announcement, but with a really attention getter in their sound.
There you go. And a buzz is a vibration. It's a vibration, which means it's a frequency. So if they're going out first, they're probably the worshipers because they're setting the atmosphere for battle.
Oh, how wonderful. Wow.
I know. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up the buzz. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Buzz.
I love that because it's a vibration.
Yeah.
It's that frequency. That is so cool. Wow, Lord. The things that you make, the things that you create, and the way that you use them are so extravagant. Extravagant. And yeah, Jill's right. You see a swarm of hornets coming, you're clearing the area in a hurry. I mean, how are you going to fight a swarm of hornets? You can't do anything even if you have a fly swatter.
Nope.
Even
you're just in trouble because they're gonna overtake you. They're gonna take you down.
You can run fast enough. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Oh man. All right. So then the snakes show up. Okay, go ahead, Jill.
Well, normally you think of snakes as deception, lies, venomous words, and accusation and intimidation. Usually it's not anything favorable, but in this case, the snakes, especially in the New Testament, one example for a positive is the verse that instructs Christians to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So also the snakes represent wisdom. I mean, they're cagey.
Yeah, they are.
So and then in the ancient history of the Bible, during Moses's time, the brazen serpent was raised up on a pole to heal those that were bitten by venomous snakes. And if the people put their trust in looking upon that brazen snake, they would be healed. And it's a foreshadowing of what Jesus did on the cross for us. He was lifted up, and if we turn to him, then we have eternal life. We'll live spiritually. So that was another positive example of what the snakes do. So anyway, yep.
I love that. So, Darla, did you have anything on the snakes?
Well, they're very beguiling. isn't that one of the first descriptions of the serpent
Yep.
in the garden? Is that they're beguiling, and they thought it was beautiful. I look at a snake and I think it's the most horrid thing I've ever seen.
There are some beautiful
Now,
snakes, though.
that's what I hear. It's going to take a lot to convince me of that, but I'm glad, like you said, they're on the right side. And I would hate to be, it's one thing to tell the children of Israel to look on that snake, and be healed. But it's another if you were to see a whole bunch of snakes coming after you. I mean, because as far as I know, just like the king cobra, there are very few that actually hunt down and bite you, because they are stuck to the ground. We can throw rocks, we can do things to kind of scare them away, but a whole army of them slithering ahead of you, I'd so much rather be on their backside than in their path.
Yeah, snakes are definitely not my favorite either. However, one thing about a snake is they're just as intimidating as that swarm of hornets. I mean, if you look at so far what the dreamer has on her side, most people are not going to stay around for the fight. They're going to vacate, as Jill said. They're going to take a vacation. They're going to vacate the area because they're not going to be interested in that battle at all. So you've got hornets in, now let's look at it this way. Okay, you've got hornets in the air, right? And they're releasing a frequency in the air. Then you've got snakes on the ground. So where are you going to go? I'm going to run the other direction for sure. Yeah, and the snakes, as Jill was saying in her research, they're very, there's a wisdom there, like the word says. One of you brought that up. We should be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. But that sort of ancient wisdom, you think of the snake as having like even an understanding of ancient mysteries, the occult, as well as see, they have that understanding of both sides of the fence, of the occult, but also of righteousness. They know both sides, and they can operate almost like a chameleon, that deception where they're alluring, they're frightening, and at the same time they're alluring, that beguiling, the what comes out of their mouths, that beguiling, the venomous conversation and all of that, and carrying the poison in their bite. So that is also very interesting. And you wouldn't think of, if you had like I don't even know what to call that, a whole group of snakes. It's not a herd, but I'm going to call it a herd of snakes. But if you had a herd of snakes coming at you, I mean, you wouldn't be trying to beat them away. There would be so many of them that it would be, because they're sort of slick. And you guys used another word a minute ago too that was really good, because they can get around things, they can get around things. But we also think of the snake as the accuser of the brethren, that venomous words. But I love that the ground is covered on behalf of the dreamer. So the air's covered, the ground's covered. So let's see what else we got in this army. What are you going to say, Bro?
The snakes too, I think, have forked tongues.
Yeah.
Which there's initial truth, but then
There's lies.
so that
Mhm.
can back up even still more of what the hornets, they're still
Absolutely.
there would be
And
a
the forked tongue is also like a double mind. So it's like it's saying one thing, it's gaslighting. It's like saying one thing, but
wow.
it's another. And sometimes it's a half truth and the rest is a lie.
Yeah.
So they can speak with both sides. They can operate on both sides. So they can speak truth and deception all out of the same tongue.
Hmm.
Very interesting.
Wow.
And what's interesting is, they have sort of it's not it's not radar. It's a special sense where their smell is in their tongue.
Hmm.
They
I
they smell with their tongue, literally with their tongue,
Mhm.
but they have a very
Yeah.
sensitive sense of smell. It's just in their tongue.
Yeah. It
And
is.
they also feel the vibration, like if you're walking on the land, they feel the vibration. They discern movement that way as well.
Mm.
And heat. They feel heat from they know where the heat is. They have this sense for temperature, which is part of how they they eat, how they catch their prey. So then the blackbirds,
Hmm.
crows, ravens, whatever, the blackbirds start showing up as well, and they're getting poised to join the crew as well. This reminds me a little bit of the what's that goofy movie with Johnny Depp in it, Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like what's his name, Captain
no.
whatever. Anyway, there was this. It was like this. Group of misfits that were his, kind of his army, and he was using his enemies and his friends and whoever he could, as his army. That's the way this feels. It's kind of like, but hey, uh, what's that saying? The enemy of my enemy,
Hmm.
you
My
Oh,
know,
friend.
yeah.
can
It's
be a
my
friend.
friend.
That there may be moments where you utilize the darkness, because God does, even through intercession. I'm not talking about witchcraft. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about where the Lord would, in his heart intent, where he would lead you to pray specific things over situations like we've been praying. You know, if people decide to stay on the wrong side of the Lord, of the kingdom of God, if they're going to stay on the side of darkness, then they be removed. So that's where the Lord would use those things for his purposes, which he really does. Jill, you want to talk a little bit about the birds?
Yeah, well, blackbirds or crows or ravens most often are associated with superstition and darkness or even witchcraft. They're scavengers, harassers, mockers, and they're usually considered kind of a curse. But in this case, the Lord is using those. Uh, an example of a positive use for this type of bird would be when the Lord used the ravens to feed Elijah when he was in a drought, when the land was in a drought and he was camped by the brook, and the ravens brought him bread and meat 2 times a day. So those scavengers provided what Elijah needed to stay alive at that time, because, you know, it's like us today, you know, we go through some of the same things as everybody else. I mean, when it rains on everybody, and when you're in a drought, everybody's in a drought. So there are provisions for us, but we still have to deal with some of that uncomfortableness that everybody else has to face. So, but luckily we have a God that fights for us, and these animals, you know, are the redemptive side of what most often they are considered. So,
yeah, and think about like the prophetic remnant. You know, the prophetic is often, you know, where, say, traditional or institutional religion is concerned, they are sort of outcasts, you know, like David when he was in the cave of Adullam with all of his misfits and training them for war. So it sort of makes sense that the Lord would use those, if they, like in your research, you were saying that all of those animals may and God could use them literally, but could be representative of those that we consider dark, humans that we consider dark, or they don't look like us, or they don't look like they would be necessarily in church, or they don't look like those that we could trust, yet the Lord brings them into our sphere of influence for the purpose of that unlikely partnership. You never know. I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'll let you guys kind of chime in. I was on a plane one time from Newark, New Jersey, and this really sweet gay gentleman sat next to me. He was just really, really interesting. And he was asking, and we were in first class. I was upgraded to first class. And so we were sitting there talking. He was asking, you know, what do you do? Whatever. You know, we were talking about whatever. He was telling me about all the properties that he had. He had a home in Tuscany. He had a home in, I don't know, Florida. And he had a home in New York. And he lived all these different places. It was very, very interesting conversation. But during the conversation, now I'm not going to tell you what he said, but I'm going to tell you the way he said it. He's talking about his life and his work and whatever, and I'm just listening. And all of a sudden, he stops in the middle of, mid-sentence. He didn't even finish the sentence. He looks me straight in the eye, and he points his finger at me, and he said, you need to blah, blah, blah. And then he finishes his sentence. And what he said when he was shaking his finger at me was the word of the Lord. It was absolutely the word of the Lord. And I was like, well, that just happened. And it's like he didn't even, it went over his head. I mean, he just went straight into it's like he never missed a beat. He went straight into the rest of his conversation like nothing ever happened. And he never mentioned it. He never said anything. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. Well, he's not somebody that I would have expected the Lord to really be speaking to me through for direction, but he certainly did. God can use anybody. And he was the sweetest little man. He was just so sweet. And it was just bizarre. It was bizarre. So the Lord can use whatever he wants to and whoever he wants to, because he loves all of us. And all of those animals and all of the people who look darker than what we consider to be safe, they're still created by the living God, and God loves them like he loves us. We like to sometimes in our Christianity, our so-called righteousness, we like to judge looking at someone, with a lot of tattoos or with some nose rings or, the big saucers in there, in their ears, whatever. And we like to judge sometimes with the outcome sounding like rebellion. Those people must be very rebellious. And it's interesting because God is using those people. Those are the people he's calling into his heart right now. And he has been for a very long time. We don't all look alike. We're not all supposed to look alike. And you can't talk to a variety of cultures of people. If you look one way all the time, God has to use people that they would relate to or that they consider relevant or that they could, be open to hear. So I just find all of that so interesting. And that information that I got on that plane that day was direction that we used even for the school in the future. But it was very interesting the way God used someone I just didn't consider because he wasn't religious. I didn't think that he really heard strongly from God. But who am I to judge? Because he definitely spoke the word of the Lord to me. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, it makes perfect sense if, when we back up and look at how Jesus is, and how many scriptures have we memorized and had our kids memorize, and, about humility before honor, people that have been, and even, religious people that have fallen, they've lost their fear of man because man has done their worst, and the same with certain other community minded people. That it reminds me that Guy reminds me of these birds. They're poised and they're ready. So what is their purpose? To go clean up after the battle? I mean, to maybe collect the booty that was left or to scavenge, whatever. But, pride before a fall. I mean, as believers, what is the first temptation that happens when you know that you're going to go to heaven because of what Jesus did? Well, it changes the way you look at the whole world, for one thing, which is good. But right not far off that back is, I know something you don't know. You really should listen to me. When maybe the Lord would say, love them or listen to them, and then tell them about me. Or, but instead, we tend to want to be that one, breaking ground, spreading the good news, whatever it is. But that haughty spirit, goes before destruction. There's no excuse for it in the believers. And so, although I still hold my opinion of snakes, I will never be a friend to a snake. I don't care. But I mean, literal snakes. I know people collect them, people hold them. I never will. But I hope that when I look at people and I see, because sometimes you look at people and you see, well, there's a little bit of a snake here. Well, okay, what aspect? Is it the positive? Is it the negative? Is there something I can do here, or is it something I just need to know here? So, but it all goes back to, what does Jesus say? Stop and ask the Holy Spirit. There's never, ever, ever, and I think you just said that, an excuse not to ask and make sure you're on the right path. Just like you could have swatted that piece of advice, but thank goodness you didn't, and maybe we all have that wisdom and respect for if not the person, for what God has put in the person.
Yeah, because, sometimes people are where they are, as you said, Darla, based upon what the way man has judged them, or placed false flags and labels on them. That happens all the time, especially through those hurtful words and venomous words. And we need to be very, very careful that we are looking at people with the eyes and the empathy of the Lord, and seeing them as that honored trophy that God actually considers them. And he does. I mean, look at the prodigal son, who was in the mud with the hogs, and he was like, with the pigs, and he was like, why am I here when I could go back and be a servant in my father's house and be clean and be fed? But when he got back, he was raised right back to his honored position, which was a child of his father, the child of his father. So, yeah, that's a very big deal. And we get to see a lot of that when we engage in psychic fairs and outreaches that we sometimes do that are so much fun, because people, when you lay down your religious coat, you lay that pride down, you lay that thing down, and you just talk to people as people, and you honor them as humans, and you just love them as Jesus does, for who he made them to be, because he sees the potential. He's not looking at the mud that they're in. He's looking at their hearts and how he loves them. Well, that changes people when they experience that type of honor and acceptance. It changes people. It changes things. And I know that is where God is calling us to be. And those that have been through satanic ritual abuse and all kinds of occultic activity and witchcraft and other forms of abuse, and all of those things that have caused them to be to look less than perfect. Those are the things God's using in their lives to make them relevant to those who need a voice that is of reason for them, that they can trust. And you can only speak into people who relate to you. And if a culture does not relate to you, your words are going to be null and void, and they're going to fall to the ground and not take root. So, yeah, that is very, very cool. And the way the Lord is raising up, these very unique, and our school is full of people like that. They're very unique people. They're not all dark, but we've had the dark ones come in, and the religious, and that's dark a lot of times, the very religious. And when the Lord starts basically slicing that away, it gets interesting, because we get to see a greater portion of what God has put in them, rather than the outcome of their sometimes shame and their woundedness and their injury and their abuse. And well, you guys know one of the things we like the best is being able to minister to those people. We love them. We have a great time just loving on all kinds of people. We don't care who they are. So that's what we teach in the school, the Now Interpret This school. That's a big deal to us. You guys want to get on that bandwagon or add anything?
Yeah, I wanted to comment about the scavengers. They usually are the ones that are the cleanup crew, And usually what is discarded is lots of times quite valuable. I would say those things that are left behind and that appear to be dead or useless would be people types too. So the scavengers are the ones that are able to find those because they relate, like you were saying, through all these life experiences that that go on. You know that they're really unique in their own fields. What's considered as misfits would be the uniqueness of that individual. And like you said, that not everybody can communicate to those that are going through some life trials. So, and I was thinking of the story of David and his men, you know, when they were considered misfits. And anyway, they had tragedy happen to them where their camp was raided while they were gone. And anyway, they were able to go in and recover all. So even though they were had taken quite a blow, they rallied themselves and they went after what belonged to them. And so I would say that was, you know, that remnant is the group that goes after what belongs to them, what they see value of. And lots of times you don't see the value.
Yeah, we're looking sometimes at the outward appearance, aren't we? And can't discern. We don't have the discernment for the value of the person. Yeah, that is such a good point, Jill. I love that. And yeah, they were a broken group of men. They were broken. They were all broken. And the Lord used them in such a significant and a mighty way. Yeah. Darla, any thoughts?
You know, and you look on the other side of that same coin, that sometimes we as religious, I'm going to pick on religious today, come in, see something that needs to be changed, see an injustice, and we want to jump in and we want to set it right. You know, after all, we're the ones that see something's wrong, then you set it right. but honestly, unless we've tasted some of these things, we can be as right as we think we can be, but chances are good we're holding somebody else back from stepping into that position. And it might be somebody that doesn't look quite right. Like you said, I mean, there are certain appearances that you just can't miss, that, you know, and so rather than judge them, you know, how much more fun would it be to see the value, as what Jill was just saying, because there is value if we just sometimes listen a minute. And whether or not, like I said, sometimes, as we were talking earlier, we're just called to intercede. We're just called to know this, to pray about it. And then, God, do I walk away or do I say something? Do I give them a hug? Do I follow them and help them? Whatever. But if I guess all this boils down to, I know there's a lot of words here, is staying in our lane as well, and letting those people in the trees that might not look valuable at a time of war, but there's a very powerful place that only they could do quite right. I don't know.
Preach, sister. Do you guys remember that dream? One of our favorite Melissas had it years ago in the very beginning when she checked into the school, and she dreamt that she was on the front porch and all of these ravens or crows showed up, and it was like an army of them out in front of them, like a sea out in front of her. And one of them flew up and landed like perched on something very close to her and was looking like nose to her. And you remember that dream was, in fact, I think we still use that dream for one of our lessons in the school, because it was about discerning. I love Song of Songs, that the passage that says, I am dark but lovely. It's like, I know that I'm unrighteous, but my love sees me as beautiful, as lovely. And he was up against her nose where she could discern that they were there for her, not against her, but they were an army of ravens or crows. You guys remember that dream?
Yes.
I will never forget that dream.
I don't. But it sounds like a really good dream.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think we had it in one of our classes in curriculum at some point, talking about being careful about the way you judge, because you literally can't judge a book by its cover. But yeah, that was such a significant dream, and it was a great corporate dream, even for the school, because we get sort of the out of the ordinary. We get the unique.
I remember the first time I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, she is in so much trouble. I thought the hordes of hell are after her right on her porch,
Yeah.
and here,
Well, I think that's what she thought when she had the dream.
another reason not to go by your soulish emotions.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because I can't remember all of the detail, but they were actually there to fight a battle on her behalf. And
would she accept it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Would she partner with that, or would she try to shoo them all away?
Yeah, because Melissa probably's got shotguns on her porch.
Oh, she does. That girl is
one of the interesting things about ravens, and I didn't know this, but we used to have ravens that were bothering us when we were trying to plant a field, and they would steal the corn every time we tried to plant. So my dad tried to shoot the ravens, and we were shooting across the river, and they would sidestep those bullets. They could see that good. So they were very hard to kill. So anyway, they have excellent eyesight, and
they're known to be highly intelligent.
Yes, I believe they are. So anyway, I thought that was kind of.
I've heard of somebody recently who had ravens getting into their cat food or something, and so they were shooing them off and throwing rocks at them. Well, these ravens would come and drop rocks on their cars. On their cars. So
that's pretty smart. Well,
I guess you don't want to mess with God's creation, right?
No.
They might teach you some lessons. But isn't that amazing? Just the way the hornets. I love that the hornets came out first with the buzz, the vibration, the frequency, the sound. I love that. The announcement, Darla, as you said, that was so good. And then the snakes, of course, the snakes are silent. That's the other thing, is they're silent. So you're not going to know they're there until you're right in the middle of it.
Right.
I love that. And then the birds.
Right.
The birds of the air. So they had the air cover and the ground cover, and it was
Yeah.
all in the dreamer's field. So whatever that field of occupation or field, it could literally be field of work. It could literally be any sense or any form of field, because it could even be just sphere of influence. The field could be.
Yeah.
And as Jill was saying in the beginning, it was also like it might have been plowed or tilled, but there was nothing growing. It was just dirt. Well, that's foundational, but the dirt is also about the land as a whole, the land as a whole, and about us. We are made from the dust of the earth. Humanity is made from the dust of the earth. So there's a lot there. And it could also have been a desolate field, a field where nothing would grow. And the warfare was intercession for what needed to be growing in that field. Because God's all about our fields flourishing.
All right. Well, that's good.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have favor no matter what shape or size,
Right?
working for you. Yeah, the Lord is
That's
good.
right.
He uses all that as favor for us. So
That's right. I love that. That's so good. That's such a good dream. I love the way God uses these dreams. I mean, you read the dream and, the dreamer reads the dream and is like, what in the world? I get it. It's like, what in the world is that talking about? But it's so interesting the way the Lord will, he will always take something and use it for his purposes. Oh, hi, daughter. How are you? We didn't see you there. Yeah, so it's God will use anyone he chooses, and it doesn't have to be someone who's even submitted to him. He will use he used Pharaoh. The word says he was hardening Pharaoh's heart, right? He was the one hardening his heart.
So the reality is, what gift we're created with is ours, whether our lifestyle reflects it or not. That he won't repent of a gift or a calling. That that sounded religious, didn't it?
You're so religious, Darla. Just kidding.
Oh, that's all right. But, the reality is he gave us what he gave us, and he's not looking to take it back.
Yeah.
He's looking to flourish it like the land,
We take all that negative religiosity off. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah. And enjoy our gifts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't despise, again, the gift that you've been given.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the small beginnings. I'm talking about don't despise the gift God has given you that you're not sure what to do with, and you're begging to find out what he's talking about or what he's trying to lead you into. It's all about timing with him. You have to give him the time to prepare your heart and your motives for what he's going to do with you. That's just the way he works. But he will prepare it, because he will not give you something that he will not equip you for and train you for and get you ready for. That field, he wants that field to be occupied. We are called to occupy, always to occupy. Good stuff. Good stuff,
Yes.
girls.
Good stuff.
Yes, it is.
Well, is there anything else you guys want to add?
That was a lot.
I know it's a lot. It's always a lot, isn't it? It's always a lot. Well, thank you guys for watching. We so appreciate you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.
Bye.